you too can develop your rookie season into a rewarding experience. If you're not a rookie team, you may also pick up a few new tips. As we go through this presentation, feel free to leave any questions you have in the chat, and the presenters will answer your questions throughout the presentation or during the Q&A at the end. All right, I'll pass it on to your presenters, Chris and Leti Olivier.
So, hi everyone, I'm Christopher Olivier, and I'm the team founder for Otterbot 7667, and I was also the captain in 2019.
And I'm Leti Olivier, the administrative mentor who was there from kind of the beginning, but not really until right before kickoff. So we look forward to sharing our information with you. Next slide. So about your presenter, your primary presenter. Christopher may not have all the blue banners. I know there was a funny meme that was floating around when we first got started about how teams such as 254 throw their blue banners along their shelves and store them aside. So Chris doesn't necessarily have that, being that we didn't really get to play a second full season yet. But he does have several years of award-winning projects that he was successfully able to complete. So when people say, well, why is he presenting? He's such a rookie, you know, he's still so new. And he had, I think he, since the age of 9, has been working on community projects, both local and statewide, that garnished the attention of several governmental officials. And so he is successful in what he sets out to do. And so we are here today to share about his steps he took to succeed in his rookie year. Next slide. So
a value statement is something that will guide to the behavior of an organization. So kind of reflecting back on or something you can consider is reflecting back on FIRST and FRC and what they are as a whole.
And why this is important, for instance, Christopher had hyper-focused on Woody Flowers and his gracious professionalism. It really was the first time we had heard those two words used together. And so he established and immediately set out to use that statement, that gracious professionalism and the ethos behind it that Woody Flowers and FIRST founders and organizers had put forth since the beginning. And he used those to establish his team values system. And we'll talk about why that's important in the next slide.
So a value statement and mission statements, they are different things, but it's really how your team is going to emulate those values. So kind of reviewing team values of the start of every meeting is something that we did a lot. That way we make sure that everyone knows those values and is able to follow them, especially when we're at competitions.
And an example for that was Christopher would have each team member, along with the mentors who subscribed to wanting to help us, he would have them read and review the team values at the start of every meeting. So sometimes it was a mentor reading them out loud, sometimes it was a student. And we did that at the start of every meeting. And we did that so that we knew that if there was an issue, for instance, you know, especially during build season, the students get really intense on their ideas and how they envision something to happen. And so obviously disagreements come up, and Chris was quick to reframe the situation and remind the students, the team members and mentors to go back to our values. You know, we set out to be a gracious professional team. And so it was really important and very key for our success to always return to following our values, which was hard because we don't necessarily follow values in real life at all times. You know, we don't have our parents saying there, behave, behave, behave. But with the rookie season, I credit the value and mission statement that Christopher established for the team as being paramount. So reading them out front at the beginning of every meeting, reminding students and team mentors when there are issues or negative situations coming up, to return to their value statement. And also what that does is that an example of that was that the students were able to totally return to that in the pits. Like say there was something happening in the pits or on the field. All we had to say is, don't forget, Otterbots are all about, and they would fill in the blanks of value and a mission statement. And we'll talk about mission statement in a little bit. I think we're ready to move on to the next slide.
So, like I kind of hinted towards earlier, a value statement is what kind of guides the spirit of your team so that students and mentors and kind of everyone else that's involved is able to continue to keep that same sentiment and that same kind of ethos within the team. Whereas a mission statement is more so what differentiates you from other teams and other organizations and kind of what makes you stand out.
And I just want to add that the why and how they're different is your mission statement is more of what you turn into what they call in the grown-up world the elevator speech. So when someone says, well, wait, aren't there like 5 FRC teams in the Bay Area? You can say yes, but ours is, and you share your mission statement. Ours is, and you come up with several words that can differentiate you from the other FRC team and or from other robotic projects. For instance, people always get us confused with the what do you call those robots that fight? Whatever they're called.
BattleBots.
But anyway, BattleBots, thank you. And we quickly throw in our mission statement, and people go, oh, that is different. So that is an example of why your value and mission statement are so important to the success of a team, especially in your first few years, and how they're different from one another, the values and mission statement. Next slide.
So, starting to design your team's mission statement, it really doesn't need to be anything fancy. And the only kind of main requirement is that it remains true to who you are as a team, a school, or a community team, depending on what you are. And our current mission statement is as a diverse community team, our mission is to inspire young minds as well as develop intelligent members of society by encouraging the exploration in areas of science, technology, and teamwork. We are about building up people as much as robots.
And so a mission statement shouldn't be extremely wordy. It has got to be something that the students and the team members and the mentors will be able to memorize. Ours is a bit wordy. And when the kids worked, the team members worked, initially, Christopher had a little bit of a longer mission statement. This is our current mission statement. But initially, when Christopher established the team, it was a tiny bit more wordier, and the kids worked together to kind of break it down to what they were going to be comfortable saying and repeating and believing in. So it is critical that the team members and or the people starting the team, they're feeling confident in being able to state it without sounding very robotic, like you memorized a script. And they have to believe in it. And it's critical because when you go and talk to your schools about support or teachers as to why you're going to miss a certain amount of time, to be able to share that mission statement, we found with our team members that they memorized it, they were able to rehearse it and restate it. And it really elevated the way people saw Christopher's work and the team's work of trying to ask for funds. They saw that it definitely made the kids stand out more. In regards to the eyes of adults, it made the parents really respect and actually not mind driving their kids across town, for either the start of meetings or pickup of meetings. Sometimes we worked late into the night, and half the times parents would be like, why are you working so long? And then they saw the kids' growth by merely just memorizing and understanding the importance of a mission statement. They begin to own that. And I think that that's what's critical and helped establish the rookie year to be so successful. So again, remember that it's got to be genuine and authentic, and they've got to believe in it so that they practice it. This next slide is all about motivation and how to get motivated new team members and or how to refresh your members if they're not if you're not starting a new team. But for those of us who started a new team, motivation is key. And Christopher will share the first few points on how he was successful in doing this.
Yeah, so the main thing that I noticed made a huge difference in keeping students' motivation and just getting them motivated in the first place was showing examples of other robots and kind of the scope of what this first robotics project is. Because to someone that's new, they don't really know what robotics is and what the project is exactly. So showing robots and competitions of teams that I look up to. So a lot of the time it was 1678, 254, and like those powerhouse California teams. and just showing that really got students motivated and interested in pursuing this project and creating a good robot. So another thing we had done a lot was showing the creation of the team and kind of where it started to where it is at that point. So especially in the first few months of starting a team, there's a lot of changes that happen super, super quickly. So showing the advancement of the team really gets students to realize that creating this big of a project is possible, but it obviously takes a lot of work.
And I would say that one of the biggest, most successful tools Christopher utilized immediately was highlighting that he had the support of an Apple mentor right off the bat. He signed on immediately when Chris approached him. He subscribed for a grant or suggested us for a grant. And we were successful in achieving an Apple grant. And so not being shy of throwing around the fact that you have an Apple mentor or whoever your mentors are, highlight their affiliation to the team because it screams true support, and community members will see it, families will see it, and they'll say like, wow, you have, like when Christopher advertised, or yeah, I guess advertised or shared publicly that we were successfully selected for the NASA grant, something that we had heard was really hard to achieve. Um, we got it. We recruited a few kids from that. And then once Google, we had an employee from Google approach us and started showing support, coming to our meetings regularly from the Greater Bay Area, and that also helped recruit and kind of elevate our rookie status within our own local community. And then, of course, identifying that they're supporting us, and some of our local sponsors who helped us, using their name, cross collaboration, that sort of stuff. It was really vital in our rookie success. So don't ever overlook them, and always follow up with thank you notes. I think that was key as well. It made them want to continue to support us even after our first season. So next slide.
So the world of robotics has something for everyone. And so personality, strengths, weaknesses, all of those are key into playing in success. So incorporating different members' abilities through our student application, we didn't use our application as a true application of sorts, but more so just a place to gather information about students for when they're interested, or depending on what they are interested in, to work on. So students that said that they are interested in marketing, yes, we'll put them in those positions to do the marketing and the social media and stuff like that, but still give students the opportunity to work on the mechanical, the electrical programming, just to see if maybe that's something they didn't know that they were interested in.
And just to highlight on how we picked up on their strengths and weaknesses, most of our kids actually had absolutely zero experience in anything related to robotics, and or even starting on a project from the ground up. So one of our key successes, in my opinion, was that we took the application and looked at them critically. Chris actually utilized his critical skills here, critical thinking skill set, and taught our vice captain Kennedy how to identify where we could take someone's weakness and highlight it and turn it into a positive, because of course he wanted, like his mission statement stated, building up people as much as it is about building robots. And in this case, in doing so, he realized that some of our students were on what they call the spectrum, and one of our students was really frustrated. This is a quick story, but he was really frustrated because he felt excluded to a certain degree. And he was frustrated because, he didn't function well in a very noisy, busy environment, which our workshop was extremely busy and noisy. And so Christopher pulled him aside and said, hey, maybe you can help us help you, and we can help the world of FRC. So together they designed a one page, which you see here on the side. I know it's hard to read here, but you can find it on the team's website. And it's a document titled Our Tips for Supporting a Neurodiversity Culture on Your FRC Team. So this is something they created towards the end of the build season. It would have been handy to have in the beginning of the build season, but it wasn't really feasible, really, because we didn't know each other as well as we did towards the end of build. We did stick to obviously the original 6-week build date. And so towards the end of the 6 weeks of working together, we identified that this particular student, not only, did he work differently, but he actually had a lot to teach us. And so we empowered him to put it down on a one-page document to help others similar to him. This was probably one of the most crucial documents that the team created together, or that a few team members created together, because it empowered several of our other students on the team to come forward and say, oh my gosh, this is what I've been struggling with, and I never was able to put it down on paper. So the judges obviously liked it at our first regional, and other team members from other teams approached us and shared how valuable it was. So you can find it on the kids' website, on the robotics website. And it just goes to show that even other weaknesses, student weaknesses, can equal a tremendous success for a rookie season. So don't be afraid to utilize a student application to get to know the students better. And so next slide.
Yeah. So having a business plan is a huge must for any sort of team, whether it's First Robotics or anything else. And some things you can kind of cover within your business plan, or some recommendations, are obviously the mission statement, because that kind of shows how you are different from other organizations, but also an outline of the team's impact and kind of outreach that you've done, along with a summary of the team's growth and future plans for the team.
I'm going to share because I got to say that initially when Christopher started this team, his business plan was well over 342 pages. It was insane. So over time, I think it was between May and November, I asked him to pare it down, because there was no way I was going to read 342 pages. And so he was able to get it down to, I think, 12 pages. And then once we got to Monterey competition, which was our first competition, we heard that a business plan shouldn't be more than 3 pages, I think. And so he struggled that night prior to our first competition to pare it down, and that's how he came up with this list. So I would say that this is a very good outline of what your business plan should entail. And I believe our OtterBots team members have published the last 2 years or last 2 seasons of the business plan, so you guys can check it out there. But every funder, your donors, are going to ask to see where you're going with this. So I would think that I'm just going to echo what Christopher said. The summary of the future of the team is imperative in order for them to want to continue to support you. So don't overlook that, along with your vision and mission statement. So if there are any questions, you guys can let us know. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next slide. You're setting achievable goals for a sustainable team. This is paramount, and I think it's what helped Christopher build such a successful team in his first year. He not only did he set achievable goals outlined on paper, but he continuously talked about how this was going to be sustainable even after he graduated high school. So with that, I think, I'm just going to share a quick story of how he approached this. His goal was, like we said in the beginning, to help students, build up people, individuals, as much as building robots. And I can't echo this any more than when we had one of our first team members that joined us, who stepped up to the vice captain role, was a girl who did not care for school. She struggled in school, did not have the best grades at all. And we were brutally honest with her that this was going to be hard. It was going to be, she was going to learn a lot. And we shared the goals. Chris shared his goals with her, and I think she joined blindly, thinking, yeah, good luck with that. I'm here to make you laugh and keep you breathing and support you in any way I can. But she had no intention of really ever learning to build or do anything. But towards the end of the 6-week build season, her grades went from D's and F's to nearly C's, and I think she even had a B in there. And by the end of the actual robotics season, she had pulled me aside and said, you know how I told you I didn't really care to go to college? Well, do you mind helping me get into at least a community college? What do I need to do? And all of a sudden, she's talking about things she wants to do in her future, all stemmed from the experiences of learning that companies do care. The grant writing process was life-changing for her. And she was actually instrumental in us getting a grant from her father's union, which she would have never She said she never would have been comfortable doing a presentation had it not been her time on the robotics team. And that was only, what, 8 weeks in? So it's truly transformational for these students if you help them draft a sustainable plan, because she had something she could always go back to and review of how and what Christopher was trying to achieve. And so being brutally honest, and realistic, but yet dreaming big, are paramount to sustainable and to a successful rookie season. So Chris, I'm going to have you talk about how you approached and how you came up with these 5 items.
Yeah. So with these 5 items, it's obviously I could add so many more on how to keep your team keeping sustainable goals and making them achievable to remain your team, to keep your team sustainable. But the main thing that I would like to really echo is being brutally realistic. So obviously having the goal of rookie all-star and EI and all of these amazing awards in your first year is amazing, but I would recommend just setting your sights on 1 or maybe 2 awards for your first year, because having those few and making sure that you're doing everything you can to strive for those really allows you to focus your time on the requirements for those awards. So right from the get-go, we had set out on wanting to get rookie all-star. So we did everything we could with the somewhat vague description of what Rookie All-Star is to try and achieve everything that from our understanding of what the award is. So communicating with the team on what is needed and how we can continue to work to try and achieve those goals is pretty important, along with making sure to never drop the ball on something that you made a commitment to. So keeping everything kind of up in the air and keeping track of everything is vital. And the only thing I can recommend for that is taking notes and calendaring things out. And we'll kind of touch on the whole calendar thing a little bit later.
So what makes your rookie team stand out from others? This is something that we kind of stumbled upon. What it comes down to is staying true to who you are, who your team is, who you are as an individual, and what your team has adopted. We didn't set out to be like, what could this logo look like that's going to make everyone want a t-shirt? Or, we didn't approach it that way. It comes back down to, it circles back to staying true to who you are, what you are, and what our team was made up of. So I think identifying what you believe in, who you are key. And that's what we did. And it was fun. I think Christopher, you can talk about, or I don't know if Christopher's comfortable because he's extremely modest, but the Otterbots came to be because he needed a logo, and he wanted a logo that represented him and his interests. And we'll talk about, you'll get a look at the logo better in a minute, but true examples from our season stem from passion and collaboration with the team members, with the team artists, and having meaning behind the color and the look. And also, I think what's paramount is Christopher took time to sit down with every team member and mentor and talked about his passion, his interest with the team, his interest in why he chose the logo. And they all, I don't want to say they all had to learn the story, but it was important for him, that everyone learn his story and learn the meaning behind the Otterbots, and that it was not just Christopher's team, but it was a community FRC team. And so I think that those are paramount for you. To have a successful season is for everyone to understand where you came from, how you got there, and why you chose those. And again, you circle back. You can't have a successful year without going back to your code of conduct. What FIRST is asking us to do. We sign up for it to be part of FIRST and FRC because we believe in their gracious professionalism and cooperation so deeply. And you establish that in your own way with your look, with your logo, how you practice, how you behave on the field, both on and off the field. And so I think we're ready for the next slide, and you can take over, Christopher.
Yeah. So the reason we chose, kind of just a quick story about why we chose the Otterbots and then the color that we chose. So the reason otters, which may seem super random, especially since we are the Napa Valley and not Monterey, where otters are typically thought of, was because I remember from back in my childhood seeing the otters start to come back into our local Napa River and just seeing them playing. And I've always liked otters. So I wanted something that really represents my community of Napa. And as the otters were finally coming back, now that the river was becoming healthier, I thought that that was a really good message. And in regards to the kind of tealish blue color, we chose that because it is the awareness color for food allergies and asthma, which quite a few of our members kind of deal with on a regular basis. So we wanted something that represents our team along with our community. And with the color and the otter, we thought that worked really well.
And then, a funny little antidote to that. On our first, one of our first competitions in real life was Monterey Bay Regional. And we got there, we arrived late for unloading, and I had texted Teresa, our regional director, that we were literally arriving 5 minutes before they closed the doors. And she coordinated for a bunch of teams to come out and help us unload our trailer, which was phenomenal because that was a great intro to FRC. Our kids were like in awe that so many people were helping us unload so quickly and so professionally and kind. But so I had stayed at the trailer that whole 6 minutes or whatever it was that they unloaded. And as I'm walking towards our pit area, and I'm wearing a t-shirt, I was blown away to how many judges and how many kids, other student team members from different teams were approaching us going, oh my gosh, can I buy a t-shirt? Can I buy a t-shirt? I love your logo. I love the look. And it was just, it was my first experience to like, wow, I cannot believe a logo or a t-shirt can be so powerful. And thankfully we had pins made and designed by one of our team members. And those were a tremendous hit. So again, what makes your team stand out is so important in your successful rookie year. And it's got to be true. Like, we couldn't have brainstormed a better visual to represent our quirky community team. So next slide.
So financials. There can be a lot to cover in regards to the financials of things, but a good recommendation that I learned was just having a quick rundown of kind of your expenses and your income. So in regards to expenses, things that you spend money on, like registration, robot parts, merchandise, and travel, and all the things that go into that. And then kind of your income, so grants, fundraising, donations, and having a quick rundown of that shows a really clear structure of who you are as a team and how you're spending your money, how you're bringing money in, and kind of just the place that you are in financially. And obviously, details may vary on which specific teams and how much they have versus how much they're spending, and just kind of it's kind of up in the air. Details vary between team to team, but as a good recommendation.
So I'm going to share that, when Christopher got this started, he had no idea. He did have grand dreams of bringing in like 60 grand, being that he had raised similar kinds of money for other projects. He thought this was going to be a snap, $60,000. You'll have a pretty successful season. But the reality was that he had two financials, his reach goals that outlined if we could get, a personalized trailer, all of this stuff. And that was his dream list, which I recommend if you have the time and the passion that you develop your dream financial outlook. But then the reality is of what is actually reasonable and what is approachable and accomplished. It's something that you can truly accomplish. And so, depending on how much time you have, once he was doing the grant writing himself, I was just signing off. I would proof it and sign it. He was doing the fundraising alone because our kids were massively introverted and were uncomfortable asking for money and donations. And so, for one person to take it on, you have to adjust accordingly because you can only do so much. And so that's where I caution you to be very, very realistic with what your team can get by doing. And I think that what we have on our website, if you want to take a look at it, is pretty realistic. You can definitely have a successful season on that kind of a budget. We did, but there was a tremendous amount of fundraising, which brings us to our next slide. And The research, you've got to research the different sponsors available out there and how to create ask letters. I believe we have examples of our early ask letters on our website. If we don't, we can make sure the kids put it back on. But there are the three different methods, in my opinion, and our experience was we relied heavily on grants, fundraising, and then social media. Those were all very powerful for us and helped us have a successful season. And we'll move right along to our next slide where Christopher will cover some of what we did.
Yeah, so recruitment and getting students in, along with getting monies in, were mainly they came from civic groups, so such as Kiwanis and Rotary and stuff like that. And in addition to that, local unions, we had no idea about that one until the end of our first season. But local unions are always interested in what students are doing, especially when it's such a cool project like this. And retired professionals like business executives, business owners, tech associates, they really can bring a lot of knowledge to the table. And most importantly, don't overlook family friends. And my mom can talk a little bit about that, but you really never know who people know until you ask.
Yeah, I would say that was, one of the most key elements. Christopher, when he started this team, Rich is, he served as the mechanical mentor. And we thought this is going to be interesting because Christopher is an extremely introverted individual. He's like a social, non-social person, if that makes sense. And he was afraid to ask, not afraid, he was just standoffish in asking our friends and family for assistance. And one of the quick experiences he had was that by merely putting it out there on his social media to our small base of friends and family members, he definitely got support from them turning him on to other people. It's in fact how he found his Apple mentor so quickly, was through his cousin, which he had no idea we knew we knew him. And so don't overlook the community recruitment. It could be a teacher you had back in fifth grade or something that can be instrumental in making your rookie season a success. So as long as you're sharing about your vision and your mission statement and your financial needs, people are always willing to help kids projects when they stand to learn so much. So we'll move on to your next slide where we will research all things 501c3. In order to have a successful fundraising campaign and a successful rookie season, I think that you have got to understand and Google or Duck it, which means go to DuckDuckGo. It's fascinating to me still to see that you can Google and or research in DuckDuckGo the exact same phrase and come up with completely different results. And so Christopher taught me that. And with regards to fundraising and 501c3, most of what we found on Google, what stated that fiscal sponsorship is not legal in California. However, if you go through some legal readings on DuckDuckGo results, we learned that it is legal for a fiscal sponsorship through a 501c3. So your options are actually, Christopher, you can talk about this more because you researched more than I did.
Yeah. So there are a ton of pros and cons in regards to being associated to the school and using their 501c3 versus creating your own or seeking fiscal sponsorship. So I would say being part of a school and using that 501c3 is probably the easiest route to go, especially if you are a school team, because that 501c3 is set up and established. You can really use that pretty easily. The kind of main downside is that you may not get your monies very quickly. So if you, for example, you bring in a $5,000 unrestricted grant, you may not see those $5,000 until several weeks later after receiving it, just because it has to get processed through the school board, and I don't know the exact process that they go through, but it has to be processed. But if you are a community team, typically you'll have your own 501c3 or have some sort of fiscal sponsorship, then you can get those monies a lot faster because you're the one doing all the processing. So I would say having a fiscal sponsorship is tricky because of all the liability and the legal work that fiscal sponsor takes on by doing the fiscal sponsorship. It makes it tricky because oftentimes people aren't willing to go through that. So you'll typically see a fee of about 5% to 25%. And so whether that's 5% of each donation, or like I was even quoted 25% of every donation or every grant that is brought in would be to the fiscal sponsor, just for the processing fees and the work that goes into it because of the liability that they take on. So my mom wouldn't let me do the true 501c3 paperwork for our first year, and I don't blame her because it's a lot of work. So I did seek fiscal sponsorship from a local nonprofit, and they helped us out a ton by even advancing us the money when we needed it to, for example, to get to World Championships. We didn't have the money come in yet from all of our fundraising, so they advanced us the money, and we paid them back after we got back from Worlds.
Yeah, so I think that an example of who or how to approach for a fiscal sponsorship, I got to watch Christopher get shut down, I don't know, over 18 times. I think 25 times he got rejected for fiscal sponsorship. It was quite painful to watch. But what I will learn is, or what I will pass on that was valuable in our success is don't give up because everyone says no. There is, I believe firmly that there is a nonprofit out there that will hear your cause and work with you and not want to take up to the 25. And I heard some were even up to 30% of what you brought in, which is huge when you're, struggling to make it happen. So don't give up. But this is again where I think that what helped him with the fiscal sponsorship that he got in the end for the team was that he was able to help them understand how important this project was to him, and how he was already so quickly positively impacting the 4 kids who immediately signed up to be part of the Otterbots right off the bat. And so don't give up. Approach those that Google and or research those organizations in your community that work with teens, whether it's 4-H clubs or Boy Scouts and or Girl Scouts or the Boys and Girls Club. Just don't give up. Always go to the top. Don't work with the people that work inside, but go right to the directors. Board of directors tend to have more say, or even people that sit on the board would be a person to go to. And again, ask your family members. They might know the board member that sits on the Boys and Girls Club, and as a favor they may do that for you. So let us know if you have any questions about how to do that. It was probably one of the hardest things Christopher had to do for structuring the team and getting them successfully on the right path, because the disappointment we learned quickly was that most grants require a 501c3 ID number, because companies, corporations aren't giving money away without it being a tax deduction for them. And so it's crucial for your success. And I think we're ready to go to the next slide.
Yeah. So the research and grant writing process is one that is full of tons and tons of information. So there are tons of great resources out there that you can find through Google and DuckDuckGo and all of that. But the strongest recommendation that I have is Google Alerts. So for those of you that don't know what Google Alerts are, it's kind of like an email that you'll get once you set it up from like the main search results for whatever key terms you put in there. So we have 6 Google Alerts set up for grants. I believe they are STEM grants, robotics grants, engineering grants, education grants, and STEM technology. So not all of them, most of the time, they won't turn up very good information, but every once in a while, there is a super amazing grant that you can apply for that fits your team or whatever you're doing exactly. So we actually got a grant through Walmart for one of our projects just solely from Google Alerts. We never knew Walmart did education and STEM grants, but they were offering it, and through the Google Alerts, we actually found that and were able to fill it out and end up getting the grant.
Yeah, so Google Alerts is paramount. And what was frustrating is Christopher had set it up, but we didn't really have anyone watching those emails because we were extremely busy. So by the tail end that I said, okay, I'll do it, I'll keep an eye on the alerts, we had already missed quite a bit. So a lot of your grants start looking for grants from November through, I'd say, March. So your January through March grants are typically not going to be dispersed until the fall, September, October, but they have deadlines of early on in the calendar year when they all have money. So grab a calendar and literally write look for Walmart grant in April. And so even if you've missed it for this coming year, you can then pass on that calendar to the next person that's going to help you with fundraising for the following season, and you'll know to look for it in the month of April or something. That's just an example. I don't remember the dates for that one. But those are steps that we took in helping us have a successful year. All right. And so we'll move on to the next slide.
Build season, kind of the moment that everyone's waiting for in regards to FRC. And build season, there's so much you can cover and so much you can do, but the main things I would say are make sure to calendar everything out. So we just talked about calendaring things out for grants, but also for build season. You want to really make sure that you have those manipulators and everything that you're working on in a timely manner so that you have time to do the programming, to do the integration, to fine tune everything, to fix the bugs. There's so much that goes into building a robot. So trying to give yourself as much time as possible is imperative. One thing that we really did to make sure we stayed on schedule was obviously putting it on a calendar, but also making harsh deadlines for things. So, for example, in our 2019 robot, the ARM system, we put a harsh deadline on that so that we knew it would be done 2 weeks prior to build season. So we put in as much time as needed to get that done so that we could get it on the robot, integrate it, and make sure that it's working correctly. Another thing that we were doing was making sure that we have people keeping an eye on those deadlines, because obviously making the deadlines and no one keeping an eye on them doesn't really serve a purpose.
So we did have to employ our vice captain was very instrumental in saying, hey, if it's not done by this date, it's just simply not going on the bot, which was tough, but we had to constantly reflect back on our goals. And so the commitment involved is where Chris would start off the meetings, either him or the vice captain would start off the meetings by saying, this is what we're setting out to do, and we have got to stick with it, so you can't blow us off, sort of thing. And so a lot of communication amongst the team members, and reminding them that everyone on the team was counting on them to show up when they said they were going to arrive for building or whatever, whether it was design or programming or whatever. And so the calendar was important. We had a big one up on the wall, and then we would constantly send out emails saying, don't forget these dates are coming up. And that was something that the vice captain did quite a bit as well. So next slide.
So mentoring teams are such an important aspect of a new FIRST robotics team. So it's pretty much a given that you'll need a mentoring team. You could get by without it, but it makes it really challenging. So what a mentoring team is a more experienced team that is able to answer questions for you, and they really don't need to be local. Although it's helpful, especially now, it's probably going to be the case that they are kind of far away, or you may not actually see them as much in person. But they can help you with things ranging from business to mechanical, electrical, programming, and literally everything that goes into a robotics team.
So this is where we give out a huge shout out to Team 2073, 1678, and 3859, because we know that they are awesome about sharing their resources, their experiences, their knowledge, their mentors, their team members, their skills, all of that. And really, a lot of Christopher's successful year with the Otterbots in his first year is because he was able to lean on Eagle Force. He quickly met this one mentor. Her name's Renee. She graduated now, obviously. And Renee was so quick to reply when Chris was like, oh my gosh, I researched this, this, and this, and I'm finding this, but I'm not sure how to apply it. What do you guys do? And so not being shy of reaching out. And what's great about FRC is Chris had met Renee early on. So we kind of just positioned ourselves to ride along with them. But shortly after it was public that we, applied for an ID number, a team number, and all of that, we were flooded with calls. So that's what's really cool about FRC is how much these teams are willing to say, hey, we saw that you're new. Do you want some help? And so not being shy on actually taking them up on their help, and making sure that you know that you're extremely thankful for their help is awesome. I think that one of our steps we took was that we took Teresa up on her offer to position us next to our mentoring team at our first event. And that was, I think, invaluable. I mean, if we broke something that we didn't know quite how to fix, or if we forgot a tool, we were able to go right next door to our team, our mentoring team, and say, "Help us, Eagle Force," and they were great. So I know that moving forward, FRC is looking a little bit different, but I think that the need for a mentoring team is still crucial if you're starting out as a rookie team, or if you're revamping, redoing a team, or, I know that as kids graduate, you lose all your senior members, and you may have a team of a bunch of new freshmen or sophomores. So that's, I think, where you might want to reach out to a mentoring team and say, how have you done it? How have you stayed sustainable with this? The fact that you lose your senior students. Don't be shy to partner up with someone and have a mentoring team. And so next slide.
So creating a plan for how you want your season to go is super helpful, especially when you have so many goals in regards to your robot, but also awards. So one of the things that I did was create kind of a vision board of sorts of all the goals I wanted in every regard of the team, and just going back to that every once in a while and making sure that we're at least fairly on track for that goal was super helpful. So we did definitely dream big, especially if we didn't anticipate to get Rookie All-Star in our first year, but we did, and we believed that we knew we had the ability to. It just was a matter of if we were actually going to do it. So one of the most important things is to share those interests with people that ask. So the mentors, other students, parents that are just coming in, but don't be afraid to ask for help of other teams and just anyone that may be able to provide some help.
Next slide. So this is where we reiterate, don't be afraid to ask questions of other teams. I think that is what the Otterbots are all about, is knowing that we don't know it all. And I can't say that too many teams know it all, except for like powerhouse teams like 254 or the Robonauts, or, huge teams that have been doing this for 20 years or so. But as you're starting out, or you've gone through a change in your organization, with your FRC organization, ask questions and ask other teams. And I think that I credit, and some of our team members credit, the fact that Christopher was not afraid to get social on media, on your texts, emails, Instagram, whatever it took, to communicate with other teams that he saw were having tremendous success. And he stepped outside his comfort zone to say, "Hey, how do you do this?" Or, especially when it came to programming. Programming in our area is so weak. The kids just do not get introduced to it early on. And so not being afraid to reach out and say, "I don't know how to do this," and asking for help. Obviously, the best part, we couldn't have had a successful rookie season if it hadn't been for the way FRC and First were set up initially by the founders. The whole willingness of people to offer help and then make themselves available to a rookie team is really amazing. So they pretty much give you all the tools, and that's why we as parents felt comfortable supporting Christopher in starting a team, because we thought, this is pretty much, it's there. You just have to show up and do it. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help, especially when you're stuck. All right, and I think we conclude with questions, right? Are there any questions that have come in or anything we can answer?
Yeah, can you explain the difference between a mission and a value statement?
Do you want me to take that, Chris, or?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So look at values kind of like your house rules, what you will and will not do, how you'll behave. So identifying what's important. Christopher's team, he initially set out with the Otterbots that the values were going to be that every team member was going to be heard and listened to. And every team member was going to have an opportunity to say how they felt or what they were envisioning or what they thought they wanted. And so even if that meant that, for example, Initially, they set out that they wanted their bot to handle the discs, whatever those were called. I forget what those were called.
The hatch
Um,
panels.
the hatch panels and the balls. And we went around the room and we had everyone talk about it, because our values were that everyone has a voice. Everyone's going to be involved from start to finish if they wanted to be. You know, we respected those kids that literally just wanted to show up and kind of hang out and listen and learn. But for those that wanted to have a say, we took time to listen to them. So that meant that our timeline had to continuously evolve. And Christopher couldn't get upset or too upset that we were delayed in our deadlines. You know, Christopher's type A personality, and he wanted to have the bot done in the first 3 weeks. So we had 3 weeks to practice. And so, but we had to remind Christopher of his values, and you know, say, hey, dude, you wanted to make sure that all kids were heard and had a voice and felt empowered to explore their thoughts. And so the values are how you approach, how you're going to, for lack of better words, rule your team or govern your team. And being respectful, like that was part of his values, was we're going to respect everyone's opinions, and we're not going to be throwing words like, oh, that's so lame, or you're so stupid, or you don't know what you're talking about. That was not going to be tolerated. So no negative back talk or mumbling. So values are rules of how you behave both in and out if you're going to be an Otterbot. That's how we used values. Now, your mission statement, you know, you're not going to go up to, say, a donor, or say you're approaching Home Depot and you're talking to the CEO of Home Depot and you're asking him for a $10,000 grant. And he calls you and he says, so I see your letter, your request, you're asking me for $10,000. You know, I heard FRC is a big thing. And 5 years ago, I gave to this one team and I didn't really hear back from them. So what makes you different? So you're not going to tell him your house rules. Those are your values. He's going to see your values by how you respond to that. You're not going to talk negative about that team from 5 years ago, because one, you may know them or you may not know them. And you may know that they were negative people. Like they just took the money and ran and they never communicated what they did with it. So you're not going to say that, because your mission statement is who your team is and how you want them to see your team as a whole. So your mission statement has got to be, so when he asks you that, you're going to be able to ramble off the 3 or 4, and forgive me because I am lousy on our mission statement. I haven't been as involved with the Otterbots for the last year, so I don't memorize the new one. But when he asks you, you know, why should I donate to you? You're going to be able to say those 3 or 4 or 5 lines of what your mission statement is. So your mission statement is how you want to be differentiated from the other FRC teams or from other robotics teams. See, we in our community were up against consistently VEX, I think is what, no, it was another one. What was the other one?
VEX.
CSTEM. CSTEM is huge in our community. And so many foundations and organizations did not want to donate to us because they were like, oh yeah, we've already sponsored that robotics team. And that's where our kids had to be really well versed with their mission statement and remember their values, because we weren't going to be like, oh, they're lame, because our values don't align to that. So, you know, our values are what makes us who we are, kind of like our rules. And then our mission statement is what our robotics team is about. You know, it's about empowering students, building up students as much as robots. That's pretty much all I remember about our mission statement. But did that help clarify the difference between values? Okay.
I think that was a good explanation. Yeah, thank you. What behavior do you believe is like the most important to instill in a rookie team?
What behavior?
Yeah.
Okay. My perspective as a mentor, I would say the biggest behavior to instill and to expect is gracious professionalism. And I know that sounds so cookie cutter, but the behavior is that they have to be willing to learn and to show up with a positive attitude. And there were times where someone, you know, it's normal. Kids have crappy days at school. So a student would walk in our doors and I'd say, wow, I can sense this is how I talk. I can sense your aura. So why don't you do me a favor and go take a walk up the street or around the block, depending on how bad of an attitude they had. It would either be around the block or just up the street. Or I'd say, you know, why don't you take we had a dog that would come to we have a shop dog. And so I'd say, why don't you take Early out for a walk? And that was code for them to know that their attitude was going to get in the way of of what they need to have in order to have the opportunity to thrive and to grow and to be a contributing member. I don't know if that makes sense. Everything else you can teach, but you can't really teach someone to have an open mind about learning if they're not open-minded. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to add anything, Christopher.
And just kind of echo what you're saying, the main behavior kind of thing that I would say is really important is a willingness to learn. So that's another thing. You can't really teach a willingness to learn. It's more so of an open mind and making sure that students are willing to accept new skills, to accept new ideas. So having an open mind and a good attitude for learning is probably one of the most important imperative behaviors or traits to have when a rookie team is starting.
And I think that what was really difficult for us is that everyone knew that Christopher had like a 4-week experience on a different team in Sonoma County prior to starting the Otterbots. That's how we learned about FRC. And so they saw him as, oh, well, he knows everything. And it was, as mentors, we were constantly like, no, he doesn't know everything. He's never started a team. He just would show up and help with mechanical because that was his area of expertise at that time. And so reminding them that we didn't know everything. We were kind of just going with the flow and trying to figure it out, and that we were all in this together. So I think being very humble and reminding them that it may look like we know what we're doing, but we didn't, and we were just as rookie as they were. So that was really, it was hard, but I think it's just saying the words to them of, we're doing this together, like we're all new at this. I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, that was a great answer, and thank you for a great presentation. I think we'll end it here. If you guys, the audience, could take a look at the survey in the chat to let us know how we did in this workshop and other workshops. And so that is all. Yeah.
And our final screen actually has our contact information if they want to access the website for the forms and documents that the team's members have uploaded over the last two or 3 years now. They're there.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you guys so much. And that is all.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.